Here's a substantial expansion on Nouriel Roubini's argument on Trumponomics, placing it in the context of Trump's second term, economic risks, and the counterbalancing forces of technological innovation. The U.S. economy will thrive despite Trumponomics. Here's why. Nouriel Roubini, known for his sharp macroeconomic insights and early warnings about systemic risks, recently argued that while Donald Trump's economic policies, collectively termed Trumponomics, pose clear risks to U.S. and global stability, powerful secular trends in technology and innovation will continue to drive U.S. economic resilience. Be Trumponomics a recipe for stagflation? With Trump's return to the White House in 2025, his administration has begun reinstating key pillars of his earlier economic playbook: protectionist trade policies, including threats of sweeping tariffs on Chinese goods and imports from other countries, isolationist geopolitical moves, such as undermining NATO, questioning U.S. commitments to global institutions, and retreating from multilateralism, degradation and fiscal expansion, which may include tax cuts skewed toward the wealthy and large corporations, coupled with significant government spending increases, especially on defense and infrastructure. Roubini sees these moves as stagflationary. They risk slowing growth while pushing up inflation through supply chain disruptions, trade wars, and fiscal overheating. Combined with high existing U.S. debt levels, these policies could increase borrowing costs and weaken the dollar, sparking financial volatility. But why the optimism? The innovation megatrend. Despite these macroeconomic headwinds, Roubini argues that the technological renaissance centered in the US is powerful enough to override many of the drag effects of bad policy. In essence, the private sector may outperform and innovate at such a pace that it counteracts the damage from populist economic management. Key innovation areas: artificial intelligence and machine learning. The US leads the world in AI, with companies like OpenAI, Google, Nvidia, and Anthropic pushing the boundaries of what machines can do. From productivity gains across sectors to new business models and automated labor, the economic dividends of AI could be vast. Clean energy and electrification. Even as Trump rolls back climate related regulations, market forces and state level policies continue to support the transition to green energy. The Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 set the stage for a multi decade boom in solar, wind, and EV technologies, many of which are now unstoppable due to their economic competitiveness. Biotechnology and genomics. Post COVID, the US biotech sector has accelerated its innovation curve, including CRISPR gene editing, personalized medicine, and mRNA based treatments. These breakthroughs are not only improving health outcomes, but also spawning new industries. Advanced manufacturing and robotics. Reshoring and deglobalization, partly triggered by Trump era policies, have ironically led to the modernization of American manufacturing. Robotics, additive manufacturing, or 3D printing, and IoT integration are boosting productivity at home. Space and quantum technologies. The US is leading a new space race, with private firms like SpaceX and government contracts driving economic spillovers. Meanwhile, advances in quantum computing and semiconductors promise another wave of computational leapfrogging. U.S. structural strengths, a cushion against policy shock. Even with policy uncertainty, the U.S. enjoys structural advantages that make it resilient: deep capital markets and the world's reserve currency, world class universities and research institutions, a dynamic, risk taking entrepreneurial culture, access to top global talent despite tightening immigration policies, a large, diversified consumer base. What could go wrong? Roubini does not suggest the US economy is invincible. There are critical tail risks. A full blown trade war with China or the EU could derail supply chains and spark retaliatory tariffs. Trump's skepticism of central bank independence could undermine monetary policy credibility. A debt spiral, fueled by tax cuts and rising interest payments, could eventually trigger a fiscal crisis. Political polarization and institutional erosion may discourage investment and sow social instability. However, barring a major external shock or policy miscalculation of historical magnitude, Roubini believes the engine of innovation will keep churning. Bottom line: Donald Trump's economic policies may introduce turbulence, inefficiencies, and inflationary pressures, but the US sits atop a wave of unprecedented technological disruption that could drive productivity, create new markets, and support real wage growth. In this view, America's innovators will carry the economy forward even if Washington tries to hold it back. The paradox of Trumponomics may be this: the more it undermines globalization and stability, the more US firms are incentivized to reinvent, adapt, and lead.